chefs have become high-profile people in our society. I'd say TV and internet have contributed to that.
Certainly helped.
And sometimes they have high egos. How do you manage?
Tom is baiting me.
How do you manage them?
So we have 6 chef partners in the company. I think one thing that you can't be afraid of in a company like ours is spirited conversations. I don't think there's anybody at the corporate level or at our chef partner level that we have brought into the fold and not wanted to hear their opinion. We sat at a table today talking about Girl in the Goat LA, and it was, me and Stephanie and Rob and Ian. And, I'd like to say that we agree on everything. We don't. But there's a lot of openness to having spirited conversations. And the one rule between Rob and I, and the one rule between us and our chef partners has been, don't dig your heels in. As soon as you dig your heels in, that's when it's going to get ugly. But I've got a great relationship with all 6 of those chefs, but I think the vetting process before we got to even deciding to partner with them is such a long process. Process number 1 when we choose a chef is not them cooking for us. It's sitting in a room with them for a couple of hours and trying to learn as much as we can about who they are as a person and what their character is. And I mean, company rule number 1, no assholes. So I don't care how good you can cook. If I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you, and Rob's going to be spending a lot of time with you, if we don't think you're a great person, it's probably not going to get to the tasting. So yeah, they have high egos because they're really talented chefs, but we can work it out through a conversation.
That's great. That's terrific. I can't let you go without also, you need to tell everybody the story about this female chef by the name of Stephanie Izard and how she got connected to the Boca Restaurant Group and how that just all evolved.
Stephanie, who's just a force, by the way, do not ever compete against her on television. She will beat you. Ever. She's the only chef on the planet who's won a James Beard Award, won Top Chef, and is an Iron Chef. She's it. We met her years ago. She'd opened up a restaurant called Scylla, which was in Bucktown and was open for a little while. A restaurant where she was trying to do everything, manage it, run it, and she struggled with that whole thing and was losing her mind, and she ended up selling the building. And around that time, she decided to go on a TV show called Top Chef. She came to have dinner in between the hiatus. We didn't know what was happening, but at that point, she had gotten to the final 3, and she had a couple weeks off before they filmed the final 3. So she came and had dinner at Boca, and I went and touched the table and said, "Hey, I heard you're on Top Chef. How's it going?" And she had a really big smile and said, "I can't tell you, but I could tell something was good." And so Rob and I said, "Hey, why don't you come down the street?" We had a restaurant at the time called Landmark, and we said, "Why don't you come down the street and let's have a drink afterwards?" And we had a drink, and we just said, "Hey, let's have a cup of coffee after you finish with the show." And literally the night that she won on TV, she texted us 5 minutes after they announced she had won and said, "Do you want to have a cup of coffee tomorrow?" Which was pretty cool. I think my text back was, "Shouldn't you be on a boat drinking champagne?" Yeah. But she was so hell bent on capitalizing on what had just happened, and she is a worker. If you ever drive around West Loop, you can see her constantly walking back and forth between Little Goat, Duck Duck Goat, and Girl in the Goat, and carrying stuff above her head. She works like 361 days a year. Who was it that was up here today that said, "My only fault is that I work too hard"? You can work too hard. Stephanie has proved it. And so it's been kind of a magical partnership. She's an amazing mom, and she's an amazing chef, and she's a good friend.
And didn't Rachel Ray ask her to open a restaurant with her before you guys? Or
we were not the only
time?
suitor. She was one of them at that time, and luckily she thought me and my knucklehead partner were a good bet.
So last question. What's the advice that you would give to your younger self, Kevin?
Oh, man. You know what? I was an incredibly anxious kid when I started. It probably served me well at times, but my early days in the restaurant business, I woke up most days sick to my stomach and often with panic attacks. And I just wish that I could have enjoyed a few of those moments more. I find myself getting into Buddhism lately a bit. One of the things I like about it is that, about being in the moment, not thinking about what's already happened and not thinking about what's about to happen, but the only thing that matters and the only thing that exists is right now. I think there were a lot of moments in those first 10 years that I missed out on because I was constantly worried about what had already happened or what was about to happen. So I would have handed myself a book on Buddhism.
I love it. I love it.